Hello, welcome back to a Spiritual Ascension, my own 5-year journey. I finally put the numbers on each video by like episode. So I think this one is probably 41. So that anyone just coming into these videos for the first time, um, please go back to the very first episode 1, which says intro, and then start from there. And I can't believe that I've done 40 of these videos already, just telling my entire story. So thank you for those who I noticed that there are a few that have been following along every day. So I'm thankful to those for doing so and hearing. And it's also, like I say, a healing for myself because you don't realize until you kind of stop and look back at, wow, I can't believe I went through all of that. Um, but that's what my soul had chose to do in this lifetime. So, um, in the last video, episode 40, I believe, I had got to the hotel where my son, right next to the highway, exact point where my son had been killed back in 2007. And it was like really like an eerie thought to think like, as I said in the other videos, there was this saying goodbye to um, the area that I grew up in, all the places that had been important to me. I went to my grammar school, my high school, um, where after I first got married, where I had lived and got my time again, and brought home my first son. And now it is this weird thing of revisiting like each location, like saying a goodbye to that life. Um, so at that hotel, I stayed there Friday night. And as you know, the night before, I had stayed outside. And there just felt like there was this need. There was something about feeling like I was supposed to be outside that night and going through that shaking. Again, it's like a purification. Um, so I was happy to get to this next hotel and just be able to relax. And again, it's like the next day, it's 11 o'clock and I got to check out. There was a Dunkin' Donuts next door. And I said, well, at least I can go and sit there for a couple hours. I thought it was going to be like a bigger Dunkin' Donuts where you can kind of, stay there, and like a Panera where it was kind of more um, private areas where you can kind of, get on your laptop and stuff. But it was a really small Dunkin' Donuts. So I didn't feel comfortable really staying there too long. The thing was um, my friend had already helped me out with 2 nights hotel. And I really didn't want to have to ask him again. Like I didn't know what to do. And I'm trying to think of who can I reach out to? Because I think I said this in another video is I have a hard time asking for help. And it was kind of like hearing these, my intuition saying that you need to be open to other people helping you. And I'm like, who can I get to help me? Who can I get to help me? And if you've been following along, you know that I had a very, um, I had developed a relationship with a guy back in beginning of 2021. And I just thought he was the one. We had talked about getting married. We had gone to look at rings. And then an ex-girlfriend came back into his life, and that was it. And I'm like, okay, I'm thinking that was my twin flame, and this was the karmic taking him away. And I had this illusion, and that's another thing to be aware of, is illusion that he was still meant for me in some way. Because if you know anything about twin flames, that's why I'm a little iffy on them. Um, that there's usually could be a third party that kind of steps in and messes up everything, and then they end up leaving with the other person, and but eventually they find their way back to you and stuff like that. But in the meantime, you're doing your divine feminine is doing her own work to better herself. So I think I'll probably talk deeper about that later on, and that's why I kind of it is it is true that, and I think for us, having chosen this path, that there is a divine counterpart waiting for us, or if we are already in a relationship, which is kind of difficult because you are meant to be alone and do spiritual growth during your ascension, to have a partner. So it could be a separation, like you were married and possibly there's a separation and then a coming back together. Anyway, long story short, I still had this illusion in my mind that this person, who now it had been 2 years since I had um, last spoken to him, that we were supposed to eventually get back together. And I held tight to that, how much my I've grown since then. But anyway, I thought about him, and I no longer had his number because that was my old phone that I had his number in. So I had gone on Facebook and I contacted his brother, and I had asked his brother, could you have him call me? So about 45 minutes, an hour later, he calls me. And I noticed when he's first talking to me, it sounds like he's like exiting like his apartment and going downstairs. And I remember that from his apartment building, that we had to go downstairs from his apartment to go outside. And then all of a sudden, like I hear him outside talking to me. And he's like, hey, how you doing? So good to hear from you, so forth and so on. And then he eventually says, I never stop loving you. And I'm like, yes, I mean, he is the one. He is the one. Anyway, we'll get more on that later. But now all of a sudden I have to tell him what I'm going through, which is even harder. So he's like, well, what happened, and so forth. And um, so I tell him kind of the whole story about, I had met him when I was still living with that family member. And, he had asked me to move in with him. And I thought, okay, finally going back to New York and everything. This is what, the universe was trying to tell me that was going to happen. And I said, no, I left there, it became like a really bad situation. And like I'm on the street right now. I don't have anywhere to go. So he said, I'll call you later and like see what I can do to help you out. Um, so I was like really happy, like, okay, at least I know I'll have some money for later. So this is Saturday morning. I didn't want to stay at that Dunkin' Donuts because it was like getting kind of weird because it was a small place and like, the kids working behind the register and stuff. So I ended up leaving there, and there was a McDonald's about a mile away. And I ended up walking to the McDonald's. And My other friend had reached out to me and he's like, "Hey, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, everything should be okay." Um, someone else is supposed to help me out for tonight. Now, the thing was, I didn't have a plan. I was relying totally on the guidance from, spirit. And I didn't know where I was going, where I was going to end up. And it was like, I wasn't even thinking that far ahead. It was more like just surviving day to day at this point. But as you'll see later on, spirit always has a plan. Um, so now it's getting to be sitting at McDonald's all day. It's getting to be, I think they were going to close around 9 o'clock or so. And it's now getting to be like 7:30. And my ex-boyfriend, whatever, never contacted me back. And I'm like, oh, shoot, like, what am I going to do? And you don't realize, like, I'm watching the news right now, and they're trying to clean up the homeless situation in Washington, D.C. And people are camping out in tents and, they want to remove them. And it's kind of like, um, I think they heard that like either they have to go into a shelter or else they can be arrested. And you don't realize, like, we can judge these people, but we don't know what their full circumstances are. And when you are on the kind of the other side of the fence, looking over at another group of people, it's easy for you to judge how people live their lives or the conditions they have made for themselves. And now here I was, had no place to go, had only the clothes on my back, um, and was in this full, if you know anything about tarot, this full energy where starting at the very beginning and making my way on this hero's journey, this ascension journey that I didn't even know where I was going to go or end up. All I knew was eventually I had to get to the New Hampshire Maine border. Didn't know how far out that was going to be. I didn't want to call him back, my ex-boyfriend, and say, you said you were going to help me out, that type of thing. So I contacted my other friend and I'm like, I'm sorry it's last minute. I thought somebody else was going to help me out. Is there any way you can help me? And he's like, okay, well, now, like as I told you, he has to like do transfer on his money and everything. And he says, okay, I'll let you know when I send the money. So I said, okay, so that should be soon. So I decided to walk back to the hotel. And I say, in the meantime, it usually takes him like 45 minutes to an hour to do the transfer or whatever. And I said, by the time I get back, it should be, he'll be able to send it and it'll be in my account in order to pay for another night. Um, Miracles are going to happen along the way. Like things that you can't even describe to other people. Like there's just this knowing. Like if you were to tell someone like this happened at this particular moment, and they're like, oh wow, okay, that worked out for you like that. But you just don't understand how miraculous something ends up happening. So I end up back at the hotel and I'm standing in the lobby. And it's now, I'm going to say 9:30, and he's not sending it through yet. And I'm texting and I'm like, are you sending? He's like, yeah, I'm still waiting for it to transfer from the other bank or whatever. I'm standing in the lobby and, the clerks are kind of looking at me, and I don't think there was anywhere to sit really. Um, and I was so tired from like being up. And that's a whole other thing too, is when you're always kind of on the go and don't have anywhere to really rest and sit. Um, like I can't lay down on any McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts, like just really to relax. Um, I was just so tired, mentally tired of those last few days. It had now been almost 7 days that I had been in this energy of trying to find my way through this journey, this new journey that I had started, not knowing where I was going. Um, so as I'm standing in the lobby, and I'm like, I don't know what he's going to do because he's not texting. Like I was texting him, now all of a sudden he's not texting me back. And I'm kind of standing there and kind of on the way back from McDonald's. I'm looking for places. You kind of get to this point where you're looking for place. Where can I bed down for the night? Like I don't have, like I had gone between the sod grass at Lowe's, like where, like you're looking for little spots. Never did that before in my life. Um, so now I'm starting to say, I just got to leave here and go find somewhere to go and just be outside again tonight. And all of a sudden, my phone gets the buzzer thing. And I look down and it's like my PayPal is saying, oh, you've received money. I'm like, oh, how did he send that? Because he usually would send it directly to my account. And I'm like, why is it going through PayPal? And so then I look, and someone had booked a reading with me. And I was like, oh my goodness. It's so funny because when I was still at the house, I was getting readings, but they were few and far between. And it was always just enough. So, like I said, Spirit wanted me to move on. So I wasn't getting a lot of readings at that point because it's funny how like Spirit controls these different situations, like to get you to move along your path. And it'd be enough for me like to pay my phone bill or another little bill I had, and enough to get some food, but not enough to accumulate that next month's rent. And I hadn't got any readings all that week. And all of a sudden, here I am standing there with, it's like going on almost 10 o'clock at night. And all of a sudden, I get payment for a reading. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like I was just like over over the moon. Like when you realize that the divine is there right with you, like watching over you. Like I'm trying to think how to describe this. Like you don't realize how much for you, for those of you that know that you are on this journey, how much the divine is watching over your every step on this journey. And when you think that you're at your lowest point, the universe comes in at the 11th hour, at the nick of time, and kind of saves you. Okay. So I was able to then go and get a rum, and that was Saturday night. So I'm going to leave this one here. And I'll go on from there in the next one. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.